So could you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Excuse me, or I'll try. My name is Jessica Baitatis, and I am an assistant professor in the teaching stream at the Department of Health and Society at the University of Toronto, Scarborough.
Awesome. So the first thing we want to ask is, in terms of teaching, we knew that you started, you didn't originally start with health. You first started with philosophy. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us about the career change? What drove you for that career change?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big question. So when I first started my undergrad, I had no idea what I was doing. I still don't really know what I'm doing, but maybe have a little bit of a better idea. When I started my undergrad, I jumped around majors, actually like quite a few times, until I landed on philosophy, which I loved. It was an amazing experience, and I learned so much that still informs the work that I do and the way that I think today. But as I like to say, my grandma was right. When I graduated with a degree in philosophy, they weren't exactly knocking down my door with job offers. So I wasn't really sure what I was going to do, to be honest, when I finished my undergrad. And then, I got the idea to go to, at the time, there were career counselors at the local library in Hamilton where I went to school. I went to McMaster. So I went to the career counselor because I figured, any advice is good advice. And actually, that's something I'd recommend for other people who might be not sure what path they want to take, is just seek out whatever advice, right? You don't necessarily have to take it, but in my case, I got the idea, which I hadn't had before, to apply for a research assistant position. So this, again, making a very long story quite long, but I applied for a research assistant position in health policy at McMaster. So at the time, I had never thought about the healthcare system. I couldn't even tell you, I had no idea what health policy was, how the health system worked, other than as a user of the health system. But I had amazing mentorship, and the principal investigator of the study who hired me also had a humanities background. So she had a PhD in history and had made a similar kind of leap to thinking about health studies. So through her mentorship and having hands-on experience doing health services and policy research, I realized, this is actually super interesting and something that I'm good at. So from there, the rest is history, right? I I continued to work in health services and policy research at the university and for government agency, did a little bit of consulting and working for nonprofits, and at the same time did my master's degree. And then that led, of course, to doing my PhD in public health. So,
and that transition to health, did that in any way shape or change the way you see healthcare now in Canada?
What do you mean? I'm going to push that back on you a little bit.
So like you said, a lot of people, they wouldn't know much about the healthcare other than the health policy. They probably wouldn't even know what health policy is or much about the health system other than they're a user.
Right.
Now that you're more knowledgeable about it and now you've pursued that kind of career, is that, do you see it differently?
Yeah, I see what you mean. Absolutely, right? How could you not? I think if anything, it's made me more of I wouldn't say apologist, but definitely a defender of our healthcare system in Ontario. Of course, it's not perfect. Nothing is. But when friends and family who don't necessarily work in this world maybe, complain about it, and there's lots to complain about it, don't get me wrong, I tend to want to step up and say, well, actually, there are reasons why you're not necessarily going to get an MRI in a week, right? We triage that there are systems in place in a publicly funded system that mean choices have to be made about who can access what and when. But overall, I would certainly take it over, a more privatized model. So I think to answer that, I've become sort of more of a defender of it than I might have been otherwise.
Just kind of to follow up on that, we grow up, a lot of us hear that in Canada, it's one of the best in the world, obviously. Would you say that's fully earned? It's or partially, it's just a story we're telling ourselves. What would you say?
That's a good question.
I don't know.
I'm going to be really careful what I say here since it's going to go on the internet forever. I think, how do I want to say that? And as I've talked about in our class, right? Canada has a long history going back decades and decades and decades. We're pushing almost a century of being an international leader in developing evidence around, health systems, population health, health promotion, and, generating guidelines, for example, on what we need to do, but not necessarily having a good reputation at following through on it, if you know what I mean. So
just to ask, what if you had 1 year, say you were in charge? what would you do? Like, is there anything like particularly you'd change?
How's my budget?
Let's say you don't. It's a realistic that we have right now in Ontario. It's like the same as right now.
Well, funny enough, I just came from lecture where we looked at some, budget numbers, like what are we actually spending in Ontario per year? And last year, 24-25, it was around 92 billion per year on healthcare, which over the last 5 years, it's gone from around 75 to 92. Like, it's a huge increase in a short amount of time. So, I mean, I think if I had a magic wand, I'd want to take up Tommy Douglas on his second wave vision for Medicare, which would be shift focus to community-based, team-based care and preventative medicine, moving away from like acute hospital-based care and physician care. Of course, we love doctors. We need doctors. But there are a lot of other types of providers who can do similar care cheaper.
Makes sense, yeah.
Moving on more to the actual course you teach that we're all in. So I want to talk about the academic pathways that open up for health. So I don't think a lot of people know about, what kind of pathway you can go to, like from picking health studies. So what do you think?
I mean, it's a good question. It's an important question. And I feel like I'm not necessarily well positioned to answer it because I've basically, I consider myself like a professional nerd. Like all I've ever done is school. So I'm like really literally not good at anything else. So I've had a very one-track approach to my life and career, which is school, and more school. And now as a prof, I'm still a student. It's more school. It's like school all the time. So, I mean, that's obviously one path, but it's such a narrow path. And like, no matter how good you are, how smart you are, and I'm not saying I'm either of those things, it really comes down to luck. Right, to choose the sort of purely academic path. And I mean, my path isn't even written yet, right? Who knows where I'll end up. But I do think that choosing health studies as a program, whether it's population health or health policy, is a smart choice. Like, there's no guarantees in life. And the current kind of geopolitical, social, economic climate is very uncertain for everyone, including, not limiting us in Canada. So, with that said, there's no guarantees in life about anything. But I do think given how much attention, how much money, how much time and thinking goes into health systems, health policy, health services in Ontario, choosing something in health studies is smart. Like, so there are pathways, I mean, one obvious one would be public service, right? Working for government in some capacity. And another advantage to health is that you're not limited just to health. Like, it's a very kind of transferable set of skills and knowledge that you could take to other ministries other than just health, for example. So we have grads from our program, and I have colleagues from my own programs that work for the Treasury, for example, which you wouldn't necessarily make the connection between health and Treasury. But again, more than 60% of our overall public spending in Ontario goes just to health. So it's a big money game. So with all that said, you could, like, government, public service, great. So something like, certainly research, like sort of strictly university-based research, working for research institutes or hospitals or hospital administration. So you're not doing research, you're not doing patient care, but you're working sort of behind the scenes in terms of how healthcare institutions like hospitals or long-term care, so on, actually work, sort of the administrative side of it. But industry, like private industry is always an option. And it's one that we don't often explore, I think, because of that sort of...
The unknown?
Well, the unknown is huge, right? And I think, since I'm now like soapboxing a little bit, but I do think we as a department here at DHS could probably do a better job at facilitating those sorts of connections and discussions between our students and industry. Now, I know we have co-op, and I don't deal with co-op, so I can't really speak to it. That would be one linkage with industry, but I think it maybe has to do, I could be completely wrong, but like that tension in health care between public and private, where private kind of becomes this like boogeyman kind of thing where we don't really want to talk about it because it's sort of big bad in the room. Or maybe at least I'm bringing my own bias towards this, I guess. But I know in my, like the way, when I've come up, in the world of health services and policy research, private industry wasn't really an option, but it is there, right? We have pharmaceutical industry, consulting. So there are big firms, big consulting firms, KPG, I forget what they are, Deloitte, there are others, where people with your skill sets that you're acquiring could go and work, for example. So, yeah, I mean, there are options. You've got the academic option, research, public service, administration, private industry. You could do a lot with it.
Just to jump on that, I know you talked about privatization and stuff like that. I had to ask you, like,
You ask the hardest questions.
I'm sorry.
You ask the questions that get me fired. But no,
I'm
it's
sorry.
okay.
I'm sorry. I think like stuff like, do you really think you can have profit and you can have compassion at the same time?
Oh God.
Because I saw like in the lecture slides you talk about in the lecture stuff like long-term care homes, stuff like that. Sometimes it's found that they do worse, especially like in COVID and stuff like that, because it's for profit.
Right.
I kind of want your opinion on that.
Isn't there some saying around like there's no ethics, there's no such thing as ethics in business? I don't know. I can't really speak to. Can for-profit coexist with compassion? That's a hard question. That's a really hard question to answer, sort of on the record. I suppose anything's possible.
Yeah.
You could imagine. We could imagine. But I guess when the profit motive is what underlies essentially, privatized approaches to anything, compassion is always going to take a second seat.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm sure there's people who will listen to this and like want to disagree with me massively. It would be an interesting conversation.
It would.
There's no ethics in business. I think that's
It's
the
something like
phrase.
that. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So you did a lot of work on like palliative care and end of life care. Looking ahead, if you could do anything, what kind of like health policies would you try and implement for how we treat end of life care in like worldwide, or at least in Canada or Ontario?
That's a really good question. So I still, my program of research that I'm developing as someone who's recently graduated from their PhD is very much centered on end of life care. So it's still a core interest of mine. But I think through my collaborations with physician leaders in end-of-life care, specifically for homeless populations, like Naheed Dasani at St. Mike's and Peach, the Palliative Education and Care for the Homeless, which is a program that he founded, which is based out of the Inner City Health Associates. It's through my collaborations with him and others that I've started to pivot my interests, still within the context, like the health services context of how we care for people at the end of life, but looking much more closely at, income and housing as core determinants of health. So, the question was sort of what would I want to do? I mean, I don't know. The honest answer is I'm not sure, but looking more closely at, how not just in the end of life, but maybe one way to answer that is thinking about how, palliative care, but especially palliative care for people who are homeless and at the extreme fringes of society in terms of, income and housing, how we care for them is not, it represents a unique opportunity to not just treat them with our medical tools, like the sort of biomedicalized approach to care, but also bridging social care. Because so much of what Dr. Dasani and his colleagues do is help link people up to social services. Things like making sure they have an OHIP card so that they can go to appointments, or getting them through charitable donations, grocery cards so that they can buy groceries, or maybe even more to the point, helping to set them up with somewhere to live. And then, as a side note, when it turns out that when you house people, they live longer. Surprise, surprise. It's like, so yeah, I guess, thinking more about how to examine that approach to care as a kind of case study for bridging health and social care, because for so long, and even still, our healthcare system is kind of treated in a silo. Whereas, again, what we know, back to your earlier question about, Canada as a leader or whatnot, we've known for a very, very long time that the healthcare system is only one piece of the puzzle when it comes to thinking about people's health and health outcomes. So how can we bridge the powerhouse that is the healthcare system with social care? I didn't quite answer your question because it was a really good one and a really hard one. Ask me in a couple of years.
All right, I'll get back to you on that.
Okay.
In terms of your actual course, like HLTA 20, I wanted to ask.
03.
Oh, 03. Oh.
Wrong prof. Who else are you interviewing for this?
03, my bad.
Okay.
In all your years of teaching, is there a type of method that you've used that really speaks to students, like to university, and like the way you see like they learn and implement like the concept better?
I mean, another aspect of my emerging program of research is around pedagogy and like how we teach effectively. So sort of strictly speaking, formally, there are people here who have built their whole academic life around understanding the principles of good teaching practice. I actually have no idea. I have no idea. I'm just doing the thing and hoping for the best. And I feel like if I had an approach is to, I hope this doesn't sound too cheesy, but like, just try to be real with students. Like, I feel like, health policy and health systems, a lot of students, especially in AO3, it's a massive first year course that everyone has to take. I know most of them don't want to be there, right? So I get great pleasure in getting their attention, right? And I think to some extent I can be pretty successful at that. So it's trying to like get students hyped about something that they come into it thinking it's going to be boring, right? And frankly, I think in other hands it could be quite boring, right? Like it's not necessarily the sexiest topic, but it is something that affects all of us. Not, health, of course, health, life, and death affects all of us, but just, seeing how, in a way, healthcare, how we approach health, who has access to health, who doesn't, what we pay for, what we don't, is a kind of bellwether for what we, as a society, sort of how we think more broadly about what we owe our citizens in general, or like what we think quality of life should look like. So I guess to answer your question, I don't have a conscious style except to try to be real with my students and kind of emulate the energy, emulate the kind of curiosity that I feel for this stuff, emulate it for my students so that maybe they get curious and excited about it too.
Mm.
So you're like living proof that like we can start off in a different like path.
Totally.
And then completely
You don't need
like,
it to all get it all figured out at the beginning.
Right. And I actually think, this is, I know, whatever, it's sort of like spoiler alert a little bit, but in terms of advice, like, yeah, you want to have some idea of what you're doing, sure. But I think if you get too narrowly focused on like, I'm going to be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever, fancy title you might think you want to be, if you get too narrowly focused on it, you're going to miss all of the other kind of opportunities that are circling around that you didn't even know exist, right? So when I was at your point, first of all, we didn't have health studies programs. They didn't exist when I was going to school, so it wouldn't have been an option or on my radar anyway. But, when I was at your point, I had no idea about health studies, health policy, the healthcare system. And it was only through, honestly, through making mistakes. Like, that's a story potentially for today, but maybe for another time. Like, it is possible to fail massively, learn from those mistakes, pick yourself back up, and move forward with that sort of knowledge, and you're that much stronger for it. So, yeah, I think, I feel like I'm kind of losing the plot here a little bit, but you want to have some, I think it's best, whatever you're doing in the moment, do it well, do it with integrity, be kind to people, because it's a really small world, right? And you will run into each other again, 5 years, 15 years from now, whatever. Do whatever you're doing, do it well, be kind, have integrity, and be open to possibility that you didn't even know existed.
And I'm sure like your philosophy background definitely helped you. What, like in your class, like you were talking about making them interested, what other topics do you see or you teach kind of merge into health that could interest other people in different programs?
Maybe, this is also something that I'm at the beginning of exploring and understanding myself. And I will say, just as like a side note, that one of the many things I love about teaching, I truly love teaching. Like, it is the best thing ever. It's a privilege to be able to do what I do. But one of the things I love about it, other than meeting awesome students, is teaching to learn. So, using teaching as an opportunity to learn more about something that I want to learn more about in my own research, right? Because again, professional nerd, as a prof, we're just constantly learning. So I think one area that I'm very interested in and starting to explore is like the politics of health. So sort of taking that a bit more seriously, more than just a tagline, like health policy is political, which is like the motto in all of my courses. So really exploring the sort of intersections of politics a bit more closely, always grounding it in health and health outcomes, population health outcomes, and how the political, ideological systems in which we live affects, like in real life or death ways, like how people are in the world. So it's a little bit out there, but I'm starting research on, and it's all very hypothetical, but like alternative like systems to the prevailing one, which would be neoliberal late stage capitalism. Like, what would it mean? What would it look like to live in a world where we prioritized seriously, not just like lip service, like community, for example, community-based care through, cooperative solutions. So I'm teaching, another course I'm teaching right now is HLCC 43, which is called The Politics of Health Policy, and we spend about 4 weeks looking at the history of anarchism, which actually is, like, as a political philosophy, we can date it back at least a couple hundred years. So taking seriously some of the political anarchist thinkers from the 18th and 19th century and what lessons we can learn in a healthcare context, and looking at examples like COVID, actually. And people have published on this. I'm not totally out to lunch in my thinking here, but looking at examples like COVID, where in the absence of any kind of state intervention, communities just stepped up to do the thing, right? Like to get groceries for the elderly neighbor who can't leave the house or is at special risk, or collecting old laptops for students who can only work from home or go to school from home, but like their families can't afford it, that sort of thing. So that's where it's not entirely clear explanation, but that's kind of where my thinking is going. So it's sort of, it's still, again, it's always grounded in health. That's always the sort of foundation for it, but moving towards a little bit more, I guess, thinking about the politics side of that.
You also mentioned a little earlier that there was no health studies program when you were coming to university.
Oh.
Let's pretend like you were a student in your own course.
Yeah.
How would you approach that class? And like if you, like with your
Our
knowledge right now,
AO3?
yeah, how would you want to do well in that class?
Yes. So I think, and I mean, this goes for all courses, like show up, right? Like just go to class, even if you're tired, whatever. Just show up, even if you close your eyes during it, although it's quite rude if you're in a small class. But if you're in a massive class like ours, like shut your eyes and just listen, whatever. I don't really care. As long as you're not talking, I don't care. But just show up, because first of all, you will absorb more than you might think, just by virtue of being there and kind of passively taking on the, not just my lecture, but also the discussion that we have in class. So you'll pick up more than you think, but it also just creates good habits, right? Creates good habits of showing up because, and I know from personal experience, that not showing up becomes a slippery slope. You miss one class, then you miss another, and then you start to feel like, oh my God.
It's like a downward spiral.
Definitely.
Absolutely, yeah. And it will drown you, right, if you're not careful. And I think that's a huge piece of advice for sort of newer students, younger students, is like, no one's gonna hold your hand through this, right? You're not on your own. Like, we have tons of resources for students, whether it's Writing Center or mental health or, clubs, there's lots, but it's up to you to seek them out.
Yeah, you have to hold yourself accountable.
You have to hold yourself accountable. So, in terms of how to do well, really in any of my classes, like show up, pay attention, because, I don't think my tests are particularly difficult if you've shown up.
I hope so.
You'll find out on Thursday. They're very fair. I promise you, they're very fair. But they're the kinds of, it's the kinds of questions, the kind of information I'll ask you to know, or things that we talk about in class, right? So if you show up, pay attention, you're already doing quite well. And then, even the readings, you should do the readings again because it's good practice, but use the lectures as your signpost to know what to focus on. And I think that's probably true, unless the prof says otherwise. I would, again, unless the prof says otherwise, they're not going to be testing you on, some random footnote on page 247 that you never talked about.
Right.
Probably. So I would say try. All I want you to do is try. Try. Show up, pay attention.
Just to follow up on that, like imagine it's like a student is on Acorn right now trying to register for a course, and he's like right there on HLTA 03. Why should he click enroll? Like, how would you sell it, kind of?
Because I'm teaching.
Oh, that's a beautiful pitch.
100%. That's why.
I'm very full of myself. I think, I guess more seriously, at least the way that I've been teaching AO3 for the last few iterations, I think this is like maybe the 4th time I've taught it. I can't remember. It's been a while. I don't care. Maybe you're like the sort of total science kid. You're going to be a neurosurgeon. You have no interest in policy. You still should understand basically how the healthcare system works, right? And even just as like a good citizen, because you need to understand where the money's going and how we're spending it, and how, I guess more to the point, how things could be different. Like that's another kind of spirit I try to instill in my students is like, yeah, there's a lot of things that suck right now, like really hard. Lots of the world kind of sucks, including aspects of the healthcare system, but it can be different, right? And it's, and really, I mean, it's a bit cheesy, but like you guys are the ones that are going to be not just feeling the effects of crappy decisions that have been made in years and decades before you, but potentially in a position to do something about it. So I think and in fact, all DHS students do have to take AO3, but I think it's a smart decision, even if you don't have any interest in studying health policy, to at least understand the basics of what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah. What do you think something like that usually surprises people when they take courses like this? Is there anything that like stands out?
Maybe, I mean, I'm just thinking of like anecdotal feedback I've gotten from chatting with students afterwards. Maybe just sort of generally being surprised at how much they enjoyed learning about health policy and health systems, like, which I feel like is the biggest feather in my cap. Is, you know, you come into this course thinking you just have to get through it, and then actually like looking forward to coming.
And what's something that like you wish your students would take like from your course and like use that throughout their lives?
Maybe, if I can be so bold, maybe like be a bit pissed off, actually, right? Like there are decisions that have been made by people with more power than you might ever have that are affecting you.
Yeah.
And you got to do something about it. I'm including myself in that as well, right? I don't want to be this sort of like older person that's like, you kids need to fix the problem you didn't create. But at the end of the day, like you will be left picking up the pieces. So I don't think I always approached teaching like this. I think this is actually something in the last year or two. Maybe I'll regret even saying this, but I do kind of want students to walk away a bit mad.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
In a productive way. Like I want you to be productively mad about how things are and hopefully feel slightly more equipped to do something about it.
Yeah. I definitely find a lot of people who like not very interested in like the politics of things. So if they can go like get one thing and, you know, start like learning about what's going on in our country and, you know, our
at least inform yourself, right? Like not everyone's going to be out on the picket line, and I totally get that. Yeah. I don't consider myself an activist. Maybe I should be, I don't know. But at least vote. That would be a start, right? And your demographic does not vote. I'd love to see that start to shift, but historically and even in the most recent elections, like the sort of 18 to 30-year-olds, just they're the smallest voting demographic, and you guys have the most to lose. So at least vote. And then by informing yourself also about what's going on, like talk to each other, right? Like the movements start with a ripple, I think, not necessarily a bang. Although, well, anyway. But so
something
I think
like the sense of community you were talking about earlier. Yeah.
Talk to each other.
The OSAP cuts.
OSAP
The
cuts.
OSAP cuts, man.
It's horrible.
That is very neoliberal, by the way. It's your responsibility to figure it out. And if you don't, have, and then, oh my God, he made the comment around like choosing basket
Oh
weaving.
yeah.
Great.
It's kind of annoying as well because we were just talking about like transitioning and all these things they can help you in the future, like another aspect or another experience from something that might not necessarily be health can, affect your like career in the future. Yeah.
And I think actually, you know what, this sort of, I'm just kind of riffing on this conversation because there are no guarantees in life, right? Just a couple of years ago, the career paths that people would have said, people like Doug Ford would have said, this is what you should do to get a job so you can pay back your OSAP loan, are more or less obsolete, right? Like AI just like destroyed whole or I almost
You can swear, it's fine.
There goes my job. Anyway, like so what certain people would say, like, do this job, this is gonna get you the career, blah, 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 doesn't even exist anymore. So I actually think it's an argument to do basket weaving. Do all the basket weaving, because that's something that's great about undergrad is it's your time to grow a bit. Again, it sounds corny, but you're never going to get this time back. Like, take electives, take the music class, do that's how basically how I landed in philosophy. Was I took one philosophy class, was like, oh my God, this is the best. This is the best. You mean I can get a whole degree sitting around like talking about, these like totally abstract, what is the meaning of life and death, right? I was like, I'm totally doing this. So I don't know, maybe that's, I don't know. Anyway.
So we're gonna move we're gonna detour a little bit.
Sure.
So this is something we do with all professors. We like to read out their Rate My Professor
Oh, no.
ratings.
Are you kidding?
we like to
surprised.
read we like to read one or two comments and get their opinion
Okay,
on it.
just as long as it's positive, because I will
No
have
worries.
an anxiety attack and spiral.
No worries, they're
You're
positive.
good, you're good.
They're
I
positive.
literally never look at Rate My Prof because I don't want to like.
No worries,
cry.
we wouldn't do that to you.
Yeah, of course.
So this first one is from your B50 class. And the student said, she's the best prof I've had in undergrad. She genuinely cares about her students and engages in lively conversation/discussion about course content. Love her, love her, love her. Take every class she teaches if you can.
Now I'm gonna cry, but in a good way.
yeah.
That's
a
so
great-
nice.
How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel like I could die happy.
Like you're doing something right.
Yep.
That's amazing. A little different comment.
Oh God.
Not too bad though.
Not too bad.
Very messy, and this was a 3 rating, but the first one was a 5-point rating. This was a 3. Very messy and took her frustrations out on the class. Wouldn't take another class with her voluntarily. Do you think this is
Messy.
this is out of like hatred for like a bad mark, or
I don't know. I mean, there's a reason why.
Must
we
be a
don't
different
take these
Jessica, right?
things. No, I'm kind of, yeah. I don't know. I mean, that sucks. I don't know what to say. I would want to have a conversation with that student to understand what they meant by messy.
Yeah, I
know.
don't get that either.
understand that either. Okay, well, that sucks.
So I think we're like pretty much done with academic questions. We can move on to more personal questions.
Sure.
So I first want to bring up baseball.
Love baseball.
We know you're a huge baseball fan. Do I even have to ask what team you support?
Come on.
Okay, skipping that. So I want to talk about the World Series night, and I want to know where you were.
I was at home.
Tell me about the day.
Oh man. I mean, obviously I watched every single game and stayed up, including that like 18 inning game, which was the night before my graduation. So that was rough the next day. I guess, the day of the World Series, I was at home with my partner, and we were both sort of like, obviously we wanted the Jays to win, but we're like, man, if they win, we're going to have to like go out, right? Like you can't
obviously,
like, stay home.
yeah, you can't stay
have
home.
to go like, I don't know, walk around the streets and like revel.
Of
So
course.
yeah, I don't know. It was just, nothing too exciting. I just, at home watching the game.
And do you have like some kind of really fun or really crazy baseball story? Like you went to a game, caught like a
I
loose
did
ball.
avoid a foul ball that like landed behind my back in the seat because I don't know. You panic. You're like, oh my God, a ball is coming. Like, what do I do? What do I do? I don't want to hurt myself. So and then someone quickly scooped it up, which was kind of annoying. No real big, crazy baseball stories. I've just put up on Saturday, which was the first day of spring training, I have a baseball card shrine.
I didn't think people still do those.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, baseball cards, still a big thing. So I don't have anything that's particularly like, I don't care about the value of the card, but I have like my favorite players lined up with and put a little candle. They light the candle. And they did win that game, and they didn't win the last 2, and I haven't been at home to watch them, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Love baseball.
A little bit more academic, but what's the most unexpected question you've gotten from a student during any one of your classes?
Oh man. Oh goodness.
And maybe a question that like opened your eyes or made you think like differently about a certain topic.
Yeah.
Really good question. I'm sure it's happened. I'm just kind of blanking. I don't know. Maybe I'll think. I can't think of anything, but I'm sure. My students are constantly surprising me with their insight and capability, and I can't think of anything. I'll think. I'll see if we can come back to that.
Would you say that you see a lot of new experiences with every batch of students? You see a new perspective brought to your class?
Yeah, I've been at UTSC for 8 years. First as a TA, and then as a course instructor, and then as a prof. So that's a fairly large, time span. And I have noticed over time that students are becoming a bit more like class conscious or something. Like, I don't know, like just more aware of like the world being on fire and a little bit more activated about it. Whereas 2018, when I first started, I didn't get that same. I felt like students were maybe a little bit more complacent or maybe just didn't understand. Although this was also pre-COVID. This was like quite a long time ago. The world was truly a slightly different place in 2018 than it is now. But I have noticed a bit of a shift in terms of students becoming a bit more kind of aware of the world and their place in it and wanting to maybe do something about it.
And a bit on a happier note, we did a little bit of research and found out that you love cats.
I do love cats.
And that you were going to take a trip to Istanbul after you finished your PhD. Did you ever end up taking it?
Not yet, because I'm still quite poor. But
Okay.
yeah, no, maybe one day. Speaking of OSAP, although I don't have OSAP, I have other student debts. But no, I just haven't had sort of like, frankly, time or money. But it's definitely on the bucket list. I would love to do a cat tour and history tour. There's so much history in that part of the world.
Nice.
Yeah.
So nice.
I believe it. And the food.
Gorgeous.
I'm sure I'd love
Oh,
the food.
yeah. The food there is amazing.
Yeah, so I just want to like hang out with cats and drink coffee. And
Do you have a cat at
snacks.
home?
I have two. I have
That's
two
nice.
little angels. Yeah.
What are their names?
Yeah,
I'm
that's
sorry. We're all like
No, that's
animal
great.
people here.
they're my world. So the older one is Bibi, and the younger one is Vapu. Vapu is actually a Finnish name. I lived in Finland for many years, and I got her on May 1st, which is May Day, which is a holiday that's celebrated, I think, more in Europe. We don't really do it here in North America. But the Finnish name for May Day is Vapu, so she's Vapu. Bibi and Vapu.
Could you say, is there something that you learned working in end-of-life care that taught you about living?
Another really good question. That's a really good question. Trying to think of a big takeaway. Maybe a takeaway, and I don't know how well I'm going to articulate this, but just maybe appreciating. I don't think I was ever super materialistic. I mean, I like stuff and things, but I think it's probably given me a greater appreciation for like relationships with people. And I don't even mean like sort of serious relationships with like your parents or your family or your partners or your friends even, but just everyday people on the street that you encounter and what it means to be like a kind person in the world and how that it doesn't have to be about grand gestures, I guess, is where I'm trying to go, and like just trying to be a good thing in the world for other people is like it's valuable, and it can be. You kind of know what I'm saying. I don't really explain that well, but it doesn't have to be these grand things, right? It's just,
Like appreciate life
yeah, and each other.
and each other. I like that.
Yeah.
Great. Like,
Just to build off
answer.
of that, what would you say, like, because you're working like in healthcare and stuff like that, did your definition of success change anyway?
Yeah, it's a good one. Because I'm someone who's always sort of battling feelings of grandeur with like the imposter syndrome. So I kind of oscillate between thinking like I'm the best. I'm so smart. I'm so good. I'm gonna change the world. To like I am useless and will never accomplish anything. And I feel like maybe like just trying to ride out somewhere in the middle. Like, and I think actually that's something again why I love teaching is like first of all, I've already accomplished a lot in my life that I'm very, very proud of, and no one can ever take that away from me. Thank you. I mean, I'm nobody. I'm nobody in the world, but I've done some things that I can be proud of. But I think with teaching, I don't know. Like if I can just either brighten a student's day or get them to see the world in a slightly different way, or encourage them to apply for the thing or join the club or like things that actually have nothing to do with academics, but just them as people, then I don't know. That is success. And again, it sounds a bit corny, but like that
Great
means
answer.
something to me.
Nice.
And also, My bad, you wanna go?
Sure. So we know about your research and your current studies, and now you love cats, you love
And
baseball.
baseball.
What is something that your students would be very surprised to know about you, if you could tell us?
I recently got my firearms license.
Oh, wow.
What? I think the last professor I would expect to hear that from.
So the story there is maybe like 2 years ago, I went to Niagara Falls with my friends. Have you guys been to Niagara Falls?
Oh,
course,
yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
You know the arcade?
Yes.
Yes.
I love the arcade. It's like the only reason to go to Niagara Falls, that and the fudge. And I did like one of these silly like kind of, it's not even like laser. I guess maybe it's laser, but just sort of like shooting like the Old West. Like
That's what
Oh, yeah.
started it.
Oh
I
no.
was
Oh
so
no.
good.
That's crazy.
I was just like boom, 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 boom. And it was like, because I like being good at things, I was like, I think this is like, and actually, okay, I think it was also around, maybe it was longer than 2 years ago, but it was, if you remember the Summer Olympics actually with the Turkish guy who was like,
Oh,
that,
yeah.
Oh yeah.
yeah,
I know
so
what
like,
you're talking about.
already
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
like, he's old, I'm old. Like maybe I could go to the Olympics. So it all kind of came together. And then, I was just like, what would it take to take up target shooting, basically, as a sport? I have no interest in killing things, like human or otherwise. I'm not a hunter or anything like that, but just like target practice. Because it's also very calming, right? Like you need to be really focused, and so much of my life is like not calm. So there's a whole process. Like it's not something you can just go get. So I slowly looked into it, and then I signed up for the courses, and I did the courses, and so now I am I have my possession and acquisition license for registered and
Do
non-registered.
you currently have one?
I do. I would not actually really be able to tell you that.
Okay.
Oh.
So I'll just
Okay.
strictly speaking, because you're not
Oh,
really
yeah,
supposed
for
to
sure,
be
for
like,
sure.
yeah, I got guns. I've seen the guns. Yeah.
Well, wow. Yeah, that is definitely surprising. Yeah.
How you mentioned about the fact that you were in philosophy and you're like, wow, I can't believe we're learning about this. Like I can get a degree in this. It's like, it's fun. But you did end up changing to health studies, which I wanted to ask for students who are unsure if they're in the right spot. Was there like a factor that made you think, okay, health, that was the right move, or like this is what I'm sticking with?
I mean, I think for me, this isn't necessarily sort of broadly applicable advice, but like, I liked it. I don't know. Like I enjoyed doing it. Like it was interesting and I was good at it. So maybe it's not health studies, but like find the thing you like, right? Like life is short and there are no guarantees. And I realize some people will, you might have parents or family who are pushing you in a direction, but try to find the thing, because this is what you're going to do for the rest of your life, right? So, although not really, that's a bit too an exaggeration. We constantly pivot and take, different paths, but just, finding something that I enjoyed and that I was good at. So, not really that helpful, I guess, but yeah.
Before I keep thinking about it, you know how you told us like one thing we should do is like to be frustrated a little like at the end.
Maybe
I get what you mean. It's like, is there anything in particular that you're frustrated about in healthcare? Any one specific thing?
The healthcare system specifically.
In the healthcare, yeah.
This is a safe space. You can just get it off your chest.
Yeah, right. Well, I've already
microphone.
sworn. I basically said the F word, and now everyone knows I have my firearms license.
But it's okay. We get to connect with you more.
Yeah.
Yeah, they know not to mess with you.
Well, but
Not to leave you a bad rating on Rate My Professor.
that was like, that really threw me for a loop. Right, my professor. I'm like, messy. I'm like the neatest person ever. I don't even know what that means. And now I'm gonna ruminate on it, and I'm gonna think about it forever. And like 3 years from now, I'll be having a shower, and I'll think about that one person.
That's so real.
Yeah. Oh my god. I don't know. I mean, with the healthcare system, I think it's just, and it's just sort of politics in general. It's so frustrating that people who are meant to be are, elective representatives, right? That's how elections are supposed to work, and democracy is supposed to work, so that they represent the people. And perhaps they're representing some people, but certainly not most people. It's just very frustrating that it feels like, whether it's Ontario or Canada or like the United States. I mean, I don't want to touch the United States. It's not my thing, I guess. But just so frustrating that the unilateral decisions seem to be being made about things that no one wants, right? I do think the vast majority of people in Ontario support a publicly funded single-tier system. I think most people do, right? We have frustrations. There's an interesting conversation to be had about whether and what could be increasingly privatized. People are mostly frustrated by wait times and lack of access that, arguably are the result of intentional deprivation, right? Like you starve the thing so it looks bad, and then people lose faith in it.
Yeah.
So I think it's just frustrating that basically our current government in Ontario kind of does whatever it wants, whether it's healthcare or science centers or
OSAP.
highways or OSAP.
Yeah.
And it's like, what are we, what? And then it's like, it really is a question. Like, what do you do about it? I honestly don't know. I mean, you vote, but that's not going to help you right now. Even protesting, like we see tens of thousands of people go to protest things and it doesn't matter. Nothing seems to matter. So yeah, I guess, I'm circling around your question, but I think, I'm frustrated by increasing, creeping privatization. I am concerned about healthcare system and access to care and who's going to be
Would you
affected
say,
by it.
imagine two people, two Canadians, one's rich and one's he's more suffering. Do you think they're going to have a different experience, whether that's even dying or just anything?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's borne out in the evidence, right? That's the social gradient of health. We know that wherever you sit on the social hierarchy, you will have poorer health outcomes. Fact.
Yeah.
Right? So, and of course there's exceptions to every rule, but life is easier when you're not worried about paying rent or OSAP loans or what are you going to eat, right? And those stresses have physical effects.
That's why income's the most important thing.
I think so. And others do too.
Yeah.
Like Danielle Martin, she formerly, until quite recently, chair of the Department of Family and Community Medicine, among other things, and now will be actually running for office.
So for other students who are watching this and are also interested in a career in health studies, what is do you think is an important skill or mindset to have when if you want to build a meaningful career out of it?
I guess it's a really broad question because I think it depends. Are you going public sector? Are you going private sector?
True.
I'm not sure how to answer it. It's a good question. I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have any good answer to that. You can rephrase it. I don't know. Maybe it's just late in the day, but I think it depends. Having a basic understanding of how health systems work, appreciating policy, what goes into that. Of course, I'm obviously constantly hammering the policy perspective because that's largely where I sit. We do, of course, have the population health program, which they're not sort of that distinct from each other, but maybe have slightly different foci.
Is there a cool health policy fact that you learned and you could shock us right now with?
Well, I don't know how shocking this will be because I feel like you guys won't know who this is. Have you ever heard of the actor Kiefer Sutherland? Probably not.
The
You guys are
Probably
too
not.
young.
name sounds familiar,
he's
but
too much
It's
of a
beyond our generation.
Well,
Yeah.
So Tommy Douglas, who is the father of Medicare, his son-in-law and his grandson are famous Hollywood actors, basically. And the grandson, Kiefer Sutherland, once spilt a drink on me in a bar. And then bought me a drink, which I didn't really want. So anyway, this made even that was more funny if you knew who Kiefer Sutherland was a big actor in the 80s. And I'm not that old, but I knew who Kiefer was, right?
So you're just at a bar
Were
with
you
him?
honored when he spilled it? Were you happy?
I'm never washing this shirt again.
He's actually quite an alcoholic, so I don't think that's all publicly available information. Anyway, I feel like this is all. But so I was at the bar. This is in Toronto with someone else, and my friend's like, "That's Kiefer Sutherland." And I was like, "Oh yeah, it's cool." Trying not to be whatever. And then he knocked a drink over, and then he was like, "Oh, I'm sorry." And I was like, "Oh, it's okay, Kiefer Sutherland, no problem." He's like, "I'll buy you another drink." He does the snapping thing, gets me a drink. He's like, you're pretty. Thank you, Kiefer Sutherland. And I'm like, I'm a big fan. And I could tell, like, as I said, I'm a big fan, his face kind of dropped. But I was like, I'm a big fan of your grandfather.
Oh, you saved yourself.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, no. And then his face, like, lit up. And he's like, oh? And I was like, yeah, Tommy Douglas, great guy. I was like, I teach about Tommy Douglas, whatever. And then he went on to tell me a pretty interesting story about the origin of Medicare in Canada, which I was not able to corroborate, but I feel like I don't know why Kiefer Sutherland would lie to me about it. So basically, I'll just say it, and like, I don't think anyone's gonna like sue me or anything because I don't even know that it's true. So whatever. But apparently, according to Kiefer Sutherland,
You have to make it clear it's from him.
Yes.
well,
Apparently.
keep repeating his name. Allegedly. So anyway, allegedly, the money. Actually, I don't even know if I should say this. I'm not even gonna say this. I feel like I can't say this. I'll tell you guys off the record.
Okay.
It's like, but let's just say that, like, allegedly, let's say the startup cash for the like hospital insurance program in Saskatchewan, where Medicare sort of had its roots, had some less than savory sources.
Ooh.
We'll have to confirm with him later, I
Yeah,
guess.
right. Well, like I said, I tried to Google this, and I'm like, there's no, like, this sounds like some family lore about where Tommy Douglas got the cash. It involved Irish mobsters.
Oh,
That's my story. And I'm probably going to get a call.
That was
from, like,
shocking. That was good.
it's pretty interesting. It's a good one. It's a really, I'm like, wow, okay, cool. So,
but I mean, it seems like the mob is helping people more than the government is. So
actually, that's kind of interesting, isn't it? And that links back to my whole community-based stuff.
yeah,
So maybe, good one.
yeah. I just want to talk a little bit about your research on the legacy documents, and like I know if you could like explain that a little bit just so people understand, and then what's like one moment that really stuck with you during your research.
So for my PhD research, I worked with a volunteer-based hospice in Toronto that essentially like trains volunteers to go into people's homes to provide companionship for people who are dying. So most of the people who are served by this hospice are like very socially isolated people across the socioeconomic spectrum. Like, you know, rich people can be lonely too. So rich and poor, but what united them was that they really didn't have any family for whatever reason. So that's where the volunteer came in to kind of fill that role. And I had actually got hooked up with this hospice as a volunteer. So I started a couple years before I began my research as a volunteer doing like care for people. And it was actually the very first client that I worked with. They called them clients. You could have a whole interesting discussion around client, patient, whatever. But the first person I worked with was, as it happens, part of this PEACH program I mentioned earlier, led by Dr. Naheed Dasani, that does end-of-life care for homeless people. So he was one such client that they found him housing. So he had an apartment. It was totally empty, just him, TV, and a hospital bed. And so I would see him like once a week for a few hours. We'd hang out, we'd play cards, and just sort of chat and get to know each other. And it was really like through that experience that got me thinking about legacy. Like I'd heard about legacy activities as a kind of formal psychosocial intervention for people at the end of life who might be suffering because they're scared of dying. And one thing that, you know, healthcare providers or practitioners might do is like do these things called legacy documents, where you basically, like in a simple form, getting people to tell their life story. You record it, you transcribe it, you kind of give them back like a book, or so it doesn't have to even be like a biography. It could be making art, like a painting, or just something that the dying person is making for their family to leave behind. So anyway, I'd heard about legacy in that context, while at the same time working with this one client who, you know, is just totally socially isolated, has nothing, has no one. The only people he sees are me and his doctors that come once in a while, and nurses and social workers. And it just kind of all, again, it's just sort of like eureka moment of like things kind of coming together. And I was just like, well, what the heck does legacy mean for someone like him? Like, he's completely alienated his family. They have nothing, they don't have anything to do with him. He has no friends, he has no money. Like there's nothing and no one to leave anything to. So what does legacy mean for him? And that kind of took me down the path of wanting to interrogate the idea of legacy, because I think a lot of assumptions in, like, as a healthcare intervention, there's a lot of assumptions that you have family, you have someone to leave something to, and that you have stuff, right? So often when we think about legacy, it also includes things like inheritance or like money or jewels or whatever that might be. But what happens when you don't have anything? You don't have anything like that. So that's sort of where, you know, my research went. And linking back to an earlier question about how I've been affected by researching people at the end of life. And I mean, it was really through this process and like coming to see that, yeah, stuff and things do matter, but it's much more about our relationships with each other in the world and the impact that we leave. Because, you know, in the context of the volunteering, and it wasn't just me, because I interviewed lots of volunteers who work with similar people to the one that I did as well. It's like there's a way in which the volunteer kind of takes on aspects of that person's legacy through learning lessons from them, right? Like you learn something about their life and how to be in the world, and you kind of take that on and internalize it and then carry it forward in terms of how you are then in the world. So yeah, I guess that's kind of the legacy stuff in a nutshell.
That's really sweet. So would you recommend like every person have a legacy document, even if they're not like necessarily suffering, but like leave something for their families, their children, their parents?
I don't know, because I guess another thing that came out of the research was wanting to be careful that you don't put pressure on people to like leave a legacy, right? For those aforementioned reasons, right? Because not everyone's going to have people to leave stuff to, and you don't want to make people feel bad that they don't have, you know, who's going to receive this? I don't know who's going to receive this. Or another, you know, kind of lesson that came out of this is like a lot of people have skeletons in their closet and they don't necessarily want to remember it, or never mind, like write it down. So maybe less about having like a kind of formal legacy document, and maybe just being more like trying to be open in families and friend groups around talking about, you know, your life. Or like if you have like grandparents or like older people who might be sort of closer, even though we could all die at any moment. But if you have older people in your life, like talk to them about their life. Like people, I mean, it's a bit of an exaggeration, but like old people love talking about themselves. Look at me right now. Like I've been talking about myself for like an hour. So ask them about their life, and like that matters, right? And I know with my own grandma, who's still alive at 97, she's amazing. I love her. Like she tells the same stories, but you know, just it's therapeutic for them just to actually, maybe that's a good point. Sorry, that just the it's therapeutic just in the act of telling, that you don't necessarily have to go through the process of like making the painting or, you know, writing the biography. So we just facilitate those conversations.
Do you think like the topic, like obviously death, it's a heavy topic, right? People don't always
Can
like,
be.
yeah.
Doesn't have to be.
Well, yeah, exactly. What advice would you give to someone like obviously dealing with someone that might be like going through a hard time or something like that? Is there any advice?
That's a good question. I mean, like part of what motivated me originally in the research was to want to try to contribute to destigmatizing conversations around death and dying, because definitely like it's not, our culture generally speaking doesn't love talking about death. So I don't know, and I feel like not everyone is necessarily going to be comfortable having those conversations, and we shouldn't necessarily, like we shouldn't be trying to force them. But in terms of advice, like sometimes less is more. I think dying can be a very isolating experience for people who are dying, because people become afraid of them, because it reminds them that they're going to die too. So whether, you know, it's people, maybe you're not even necessarily dying, but like you've got a diagnosis of cancer and it doesn't look good. Like people often feel like, well, I don't want to be a burden, or, you know, like, so what ends up happening is that people who are dealing with serious life-limiting illness or, you know, even terminal illness end up, their social world shrinks a lot. Yeah. So to the best that you can, try to still be present. Like don't assume that they don't want you around, right? They'll tell you if they don't want to talk today or whatever, they'll tell you, and you're like, okay, and you'll respect that. But check in. I don't know.
Listening to them. Like
listening, listening is so big, right?
Yeah.
You do a lot of good work just by being present. They often call it sort of bearing witness is a term that comes up quite a lot. Just bearing witness to someone else's suffering is a powerful thing to do.
So in the end, it's again like collaborating, community, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And I don't think we have a lot of it.
So as a last question,
Sure.
question we ask every professor, if you could give advice to a high schooler about to start university, what would the one piece of advice be?
And it's like a question just on university,
Yeah.
not necessarily your class.
Okay, fair. I don't know if this is going to be one piece of advice, but I'll just think out loud. Like, try to have fun. University is awesome, and it's kind of a once-in-a-lifetime thing. So do try to make sure that you're enjoying yourself a bit, but maybe not too much, but socialize, meet people. Don't just totally, drill down on studying, because there's more to life than that, I think. And I think especially at University of Toronto, it can become very study focused. So I don't know. Try to have some fun with it. Do remember, we've talked about this already, that you have to be, as you put it, accountable to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
There's tons of resources available to you, but you have to seek them out. No one's going to hold your hand, really. It's not high school anymore, right? I don't really care if you come to class. It doesn't matter to me. I still get paid the same. I would love you to be there, but I don't care. So yeah, just realize that it is, I don't know. I'm going to ask you guys, how did you find the transition? Was it a shock, or was it totally radically different from high school?
I would say it was a little jump.
It was a jump.
No, obviously there's no calling your parents if you skip school today and
No.
stuff like that. That's the biggest thing, I think.
Yeah, it might be
Okay.
more hard to make yourself accountable, because in high school you get a phone call, your
Right.
parents will tell you, hey, why weren't you in class? But
Yeah.
here it's so easy, just don't show up. So
Totally.
I want to say as well, in the first semester when you get here, you're really trying to focus. So I feel like it is much easier. But I've seen personally, the second semester is usually harder for people to
Interesting.
adjust to, because they're okay, I've got the hang of it, so it's okay if I start skipping lectures, which is
Slippery slope.
very slippery slope. Yeah, definitely. It gets hard to manage after, especially since a lot of students take 4 or 5 classes a semester.
Yes. Actually, on that note, you made me think of 2 things. What was the first one? Oh, just building good habits. It sounds really kind of obvious, and you hear this all the time, but you got to figure it out. I was definitely the kind of student in high school that didn't really have to try. You guys probably can relate to that, I'm guessing. You just kind of, whatever. You probably did well.
Yeah.
You
It
did well.
just happened.
It just
You know?
kind of happened,
Yeah.
right? Because you're whatever. But university can be a bit different. So I know I kind of had to learn how to study.
Mm-hmm.
And that was things like showing up, and how do you build, you really have to take time management quite seriously. But then what was the second thing? You said another thing that made me think of a really good point. Now I lost it.
the 3 to 4 to 5 courses.
Yes, thank you.
How'd you catch
It
that?
is, that's good, that's good. University is a marathon, not a sprint. So if you find 5 courses is killing you, take 4. If you take an extra semester or even an extra year, it doesn't matter. Now, I say this knowing that you might have external pressures with family or money. There can be real material reasons why you have to hustle through. But if you can, I would rather see you take a little bit longer to do better and not totally destroy yourself in the process, because it's a lot. Taking 5 classes is a lot of work. It's obviously doable. People do it all the time. But just don't be, I feel like a lot of students that I've mentored kind of have this mindset that they need to get through it on this timeline. It's no one cares. It took me 8 years to finish my undergrad.
Wow.
Yeah. Again, story for another podcast. But it doesn't matter now. No one cares.
Yeah.
It
Successful professor.
doesn't. Successful. We're still, that's the jury's out. But a professor. So anyway, just take your time with it. Try to enjoy it. I know it's easy for me to say. You will be responsible for yourself. And maybe for the love of all that is holy, put the course code in the subject line when you email your professor. It just blows my mind. I'll get these emails that is what's up with the thing? And I'm I have no idea what class you're talking about. I'm teaching about 600 students right now.
Wow. That'll be the tagline of the post.
And even if I do know what class you're talking about, I'm still going to act like I don't and make you write me back and clarify. So, yeah, I don't know. That would be my advice. And I guess another piece of advice, like reach out to your professors. Like we do notice you, even in a class like our class, 450 students. We've had really good attendance this term. I recognize faces. Like we do. I mean, put up your hand. It can be terrifying. And like, I am not a natural born speaker. Like trying to raise my hand to ask a question back in the day was like terrifying, but it's part of the learning process, you know? So ask questions, get your face out there, go to office hours. We do remember you, even in groups of, we're teaching hundreds and hundreds of students. Like the cream rises to the top. So be the cream.
All right.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's a nice way
Might have to put that on the t-shirt.
Yeah. We'll start telling that to people.
Be the cream.
So Professor, thank you so much
Thank
for coming.
you.
I think
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
a wrap.
We learned
That's
a lot.
great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Okay.